starting up here. Joining us right now, Sactown Sports Kings insider, and just a lovely gentleman, the one, the only Brenden Nunes. Good morning, Brenden.
Good morning, Dave. How you doing?
Good. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well.
Want to get into, by the way, you can follow Brenden at Brenden, that's Brenden, Nunes, Nunes, NBA, at Brenden Nunes, NBA. I want to remind everybody, Brenden has a think piece coming up on the Fox trade and wants your reactions. Tag him on Twitter. What? Tag him on Twitter and let him know what you think. Good morning. Everything good?
Yeah, I actually stopped covering the Sacramento Kings, and I'm fully a De'Aaron Fox page now. That's all I prefer to talk about in my free time. Thanks for the promo.
What did somebody say yesterday? You got Mike Brown in your profile pic and your and your Avi. That's you're a Brown fan, not a Kings fan.
Yeah, I guess I need to make some updates. You know, it's not my fault. It's quick changes, as you know, Dave.
You got crap. Are you channeling your inner Carmichael Dave? Last night you said after, this morning, I guess, technically, you were up late. Sorry to say it. I'm quoting Brendan's Twitter right now. Sorry to say it. I have no faith in this Kings team and haven't all year. I don't understand how this team is ever supposed to even sniff the conference finals in the next 5 years. I hope I end up on Cold Takes Exposed. I don't see the vision. I'm glad to hear any counters. You know, welcome, Brenden. And I say this not in a condescending way, just only in a way of somebody who's been doing this a very long time. Welcome, because I noticed earlier this week you had mentioned you hit 10,000 followers. You mentioned that Twitter's a big reason why you were able to get this job and get into media. So as you begin what I'm sure will be a long and illustrious career, welcome to that world where you have to walk the line between giving your opinion and making sure that opinion is honest and unbiased. And also, if you do that and that opinion happens to be on the negative side, you're going to get killed by a lot of people who think you're a hater. And I'm sure you're experiencing a lot of that last night and today.
Yeah, you know, that's it's part of it for sure. And I think typically I'm pretty good at ignoring most of it. I think the personal attacks on De'Aaron kind of got to me a little bit at times because I just felt like they were very unnecessary, and it's not like De'Aaron's doing himself any favors throughout all of this.
Right.
But yeah, I just felt like at times the line was kind of being crossed and a little unnecessary. But yeah, you know, I feel like part of the party now, and I've also been told that the Kings would break me eventually, and I think we're starting to get to the point a little bit, you know. But again, I mean, I said what I said, and I 100% stand on that. But I do think that they can be a fun team this year. I think my larger point there is that, you know, I'm looking at it from 10,000 feet with the idea that everyone's goal is a championship. And to be blunt, that's not always the case.
Well, and look, for starters, I don't disagree with what you said. And also, I would love to be right there next to you on that Cold Takes Exposed mountain. I want nothing. And I know you feel the same way. I want nothing more than to be wrong, but that's not the job. The job isn't to hold pom-poms and cheer. The job is to analyze and say what you think. And I think we're very similar in what we're saying is that on paper and individually in a vacuum, there's a lot of talent on this team, especially in the top six, if you include Keon Ellis. But it's the mix, and no matter what they do, no matter what they put in there, time and time again, you have this wrong mix of win now guys that are. What I said earlier, Brenden, basically was this is a really good fantasy basketball team. It's not a great NBA team.
I think that's a great way to put it.
And I don't know how they solve their defensive issues. I really don't. And we said it at media day. We said it before the trade deadline. We're saying it now. And by the way, with De'Aaron Fox on the team, we said the same thing. They've got to help their bench depth, which they did, and they got to play defense. And I just you have all these performances last night, great performances from 4 different Kings, and you still lose to a team that lost 10 in a row. That's going to happen again.
100%. I mean. Again, and this was an issue with De'Aaron Fox on the team as well. I think it got a little bit worse since, but you interviewed Monty McNair the other day, and he talked about the idea of being top 5 offensively and sort of just in the upper half defensively. And I don't love that formula. I think that they also aren't exactly there right now. I think the offense can be for sure, but defensively they're 20th on the year. Again, they haven't gotten a chance to practice with this group, and I think it will look better. Like I said, I think that they can be a fun team that can score a lot and race to 130, 140 every night. But again, some of these are with the Aaron as well, but gave up 140 twice on that recent road trip that they had gone on. They gave up 130 to the second worst offense in the league in the Orlando Magic. New Orleans Pelicans, by the way, were 26th in offensive rating before that game. You gave up 140 in overtime, but CJ McCollum practically walked into a layup to win the game, Dave, and he somehow missed it, which felt like a miracle. But defensively, I am a believer, and not to go full Nico Harrison here because I would never, but I am a believer in defense wins championships, and I think just being in the upper half of the league defensively is not quite going to cut it. But again, I'm also very aware that I am of the viewpoint of, championship is the eventual goal. And I'd love to hear your perspective on the value of just fielding a competitive team after the history of this organization, the 16, 17 seasons of not making the postseason, because, I was only around for 6, 7 of those and didn't have to deal with the whole thing. So what's your perspective on, like I said, value of fielding a competitive team compared to really striving for championship?
I think they needed to get out of the 16-year drought any way possible, and they did that, and they got some good vibes in the Beam team and all that stuff. They had to do it. I don't blame them for doing that. I think the team has far more talent now than they did when Monty McNair took over, and I think he's done a masterful job at getting there. My problem is that I think you have outside influences or inside influences that want to push, and take shortcuts, and that's kind of where we're at right now. I only one team out of 32 is going to win a title, but right. I'd like to be in that group that at some point that is considered for one at the beginning of the year and can push, meaning second round Western Conference Finals. You build. And when you look at a lot of the teams in the NBA, I'm not talking about the Bostons or the Denvers, the perennial contenders. The Cavs rebuilt and are building towards something. The Knicks are building towards something. Hell, even the Pacers, you feel like, are building towards something. The Bucks are a team that's a perennial. Anytime you have Giannis, you're contending. The Pistons are building towards something. The Magic are building towards something, both Pistons and Magic, with young up-and-coming teams. We know what the Thunder are. They're the example. The Grizzlies were missing Ja last year, building towards contention. The Rockets building. The Lakers perennially contending with LeBron and now Luka Doncic. Even last year, the Timberwolves, Superstar and Edwards, building towards something. You look at the Kings, and the Kings, to me, are in that similar conversation as the Heat, the Warriors, the Suns, maybe even the Magic at this point. Middle-aged team. The difference is they don't have past success to speak of. And this is not a championship ceiling or an NBA final ceiling or I think even a Western Conference final ceiling. And on top of that, you haven't built up tremendous draft capital in the future. You also don't have a ton of really tradable assets. And I know this is long-winded, but we discussed it earlier, Brenden. When you look at, okay, well, let's completely rebuild, which this ownership will never do. Sabonis, you're going to get a decent haul for, no doubt. Is Keegan's value really that high? You'll get something for DeRozan, but I mean, we're talking what? Maybe a pick, maybe a young rotational player. Levine has one of the worst contracts in the NBA, and he signed for another 2 years with that player option at $50 million. And I think you can get something for Monk, but none of these, and forget the bench. None of these are guys that are bringing you multiple first-round picks or young studs that just, we're not pulling a Paul George for a rookie Gilgeous-Alexander type move here. So I just, like you, I don't know what the long-term vision is here. I feel like it's just, let's just win and be as entertaining as we can right now and pull out all the stops.
Yeah, for sure, which, has some value, just entertainment value right now. And again, I'm not trying to say that I think this year's team is just horrible, but to what you just said, like it's the long-term vision that I think I'm struggling to see. And people joke about my Mike Brown pictures and my my bio and my whatever it's called banner on Twitter. But I think that was that's one of the things I agreed with Mike a lot, that he felt like he was eventually striving towards that. And, sometimes you have to take one step backwards to take two steps forward. And the defensive focus that he had on this team, or the, as much as Kevin Herter jokes that they're running the same play over and over, I think the read and react is supposed to be unscoutable in the postseason. Or when he first had his introductory press conference, he talked about having a vertical and horizontal alignment within the organization, and that being important to fixing the culture in Sacramento. And I think we could not be further from that being the case right now, Dave. And it just gives me not much hope for what the future outlook looks like. Again, you can continue to be a team that we're wondering, hey, maybe they'll have a chance of getting out of the first round. But I kind of side with, I think Daryl Morey is the one that said it years ago, like, just get to the conference finals and anything can happen from there. Yeah. Really, you saw it with the Toronto Raptors, obviously, and there's other outlier scenarios, but that's kind of where I stand. And it's, to your point, tough for me to see how we eventually get to that point. The hardest piece to find in roster construction is a number one option. And I'm not saying that De'Aaron Fox is that guy, but I thought he was your only chance at that. And I thought that Mike Brown thought that same thing and was trying to push him to be better. And he needed to be better than what he had been, obviously. He hadn't shown that he could be that guy up to this point. But he was the only person that I personally felt like had a chance. And even if it was a long shot. And now you have to find that again. And especially as a small market like the Sacramento Kings, sure, you could luck into an SGA when you trade away one of your guys, but that's also an outlier scenario. It really has to be through the draft. And again, I understand I don't have the same perspective of dealing with the extended drought like the rest of the Kings fan base did, but I really think that bottoming out is the only way that you eventually get that number one and reach any sort of even flirting with contention.
Never lacks drama. The Sacramento Kings, Brenden Nunes, Sactown Sports Kings insider, joins us each and every week. Have a good All-Star break, my man. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Thanks so much for joining us.
Appreciate you. Any recommendations for what to do at All-Star?
I would do anything but watch basketball, my friend. Because
there we go.
It's gonna be nothing but a basketball sandwich for the rest of the season. So
that's the plan.
Good luck, dude. Thank you. That's Brenden Nunes. We'll pause, take a quick 1 minute break. When we come back, we'll switch it up a little bit. Sac Republic owner Kevin Nagel joins us next.